Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Well, I'm excited about this message today, but I like to start with a joke because that kind of helps us all settle in together. I think it helps me more than you, but thank you for indulging me. At our staff meeting on Tuesday, one of our staff members always brings a joke, and right now it's Christina Connor, and this is what she brought, and I just loved it, so you're going to get it. My dad is so cheap that when he dies, he's going to walk toward the light and turn it off. Isn't that good? I laughed just like that on Tuesday. I was like, oh man, that's a good one. Today I'm speaking about the power of mind. The power of mind. And I want to start with, I've got quite a few quotes today, but it's a good chance for us to go back to the roots, to our basic teachings on this. I'm going to start with Charles Fillmore and see what he had to say about it. Divine mind, God mind, ever-present, all-knowing mind, the absolute, the unlimited, omnipresent, all-wise, all-loving, all-powerful spirit. So mind is another name for God. There is but one mind, and that mind cannot be separated or divided because, like the principle of mathematics, it is indivisible. All that we can say of the one mind is that it's absolute and that all its manifestations are in essence like itself. Mind is not a thing, mind is. It is that which through orderly processes produces things. Divine mind first conceives the idea, then images its fulfillment. Man acting, and I should say humankind, acting in cooperation with divine mind, places themselves under the same creative law and thus brings their ideas into manifestation. So what Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, along with his wife Myrtle, is teaching us is that mind, the thing itself simply knows, and this knowing demonstrates itself into infinite forms. And there can be no division, so our mind is a part of the one mind. And what we teach in Unity, you might hear the words like manifestation, demonstration, that what we teach here is that our mind, the thoughts that we hold in mind, and we know the rest of that, produce after their kind. Our thoughts are creative. And so it's a power that is given to us, and we can use it for good or for ill. But if you didn't know that before you came in today, now you know. If you want to know what your mind has been holding on to, take a look at your life. I didn't like that the first time somebody told me that. I will tell you that right now. It was about 31 years ago at a church kind of like this in Dallas, and I was like, that can't be right. I was not ready for that level of responsibility. Over time, as I took up the teachings and the principles and the practice of this new thought tradition that Unity is a part of, I began to use this power of mind in intentional ways to bring about the changes and transformations I desired in my life. Has not been a perfect process, has not been an easy process, but it works. My life looks so different than the life that I had 31 years ago when I first walked into a New Thought church. And it's simply because I learned to practice what was given to me in these teachings. And so some of us have been practicing this for many, many decades, and some of us are brand new to it. So I'm going to kind of hit all those spots that I can today, but I'm really just going to do what people in the recovery world say is I'm going to share my experience, strength, and hope around it. And I am a laboratory of one. I'm a focus group of one. But I will tell you that this has worked for me brilliantly. Here's a quote from Ernest Holmes. He's the founder of our sister tradition, Centers for Spiritual Living, also sometimes called religious science. He says, few people realize that the law of thought is the great reality, that thoughts produce things. Did you know that? Thoughts produce things. Everything you can see, name, point to in the world was a thought before it was a thing. I don't know why, but New Thought ministers always point to the podium at this point in the teaching and say, this podium was a thought in some designer's mind. And then that thought was translated into some sort of instructions, and then there was probably a prototype built, and then it was manufactured, but it began as a thought. Ernest Holmes also says this in his seminal work, The Science of Mind. There is only one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is perfect. That mind is my mind now. Would you repeat after me? There's only one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is perfect. That mind is my mind now. This is a powerful affirmation. A powerful affirmation of the transformational power of thought held in mind. So if it's true that our mind, we've never been separate from God, then why don't I manifest everything? Why don't I have just piles of money just falling down from the sky around me? Why don't I have just the most handsome, beautiful partner in the world? Why don't I have all these things I want if my thought is always producing after its kind? Tell me why, Reverend Michael. I'm going to tell you why. Because the mind is not just one mind. We also have an unconscious mind. Carl Jung, who's one of the founders, along with Freud, of really modern psychology, psychotherapy, psychiatry. But Jung took a very, I would say, a spiritual approach to this whole thing. But he did say that what we are, I think I shared with you a few weeks ago that Freud estimated that 80% of what we are is unconscious mind. That's really troubling, isn't it? Jung is not going to make you feel better if you don't like that quote. Jung said that the unconscious mind within us is like an ocean, and our conscious mind is like a cork floating in that ocean. And that's why you don't have the boyfriend and the girlfriend and the wads of money right now, because you have an unconscious mind that holds beliefs and ideas about who and what you are and what you aren't, and it's in there too. And that, too, is a part of our consciousness. Even though it's unconscious, it's informing us about who we think we are. Here's the good news. Carl Jung also said that even though they're of vastly different sizes, they are of equal power, because the conscious mind is so powerful. When we are using our intention, it gives us a doorway into reclaiming our spiritual power. So that's what we're talking about today. The power of our conscious mind to access the one mind of God. And we're going to come back to the other part too, that unconscious mind. I'm going to share with you a story that really wanted to be brought today. Many of you will know this. If, like me, you grew up in church. And if not, hey, it's a good story. You'll like it. This comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7. And after he finished all of his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. And now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, and who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent him elders of the Jews, and they asking him to come and heal his servant. And when these elders came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation. He is the one who built our synagogue." And Jesus went with them. And he was not far from the house. The centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes. And I say to another, 'Come,' and he comes. And to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard these things, he was amazed. And turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant healed. That's a great story. I'm going to come back to that. Let's have a little Charles Fillmore. I looked in the Revealing Word, which is, it's a glossary of metaphysical terms. And I just decided to see, I've read it before, but I want to see what Charles had to say about the word mind. There are 9 entries under mind. There is first capital M, mind. There is lowercase m, mind. There is mind, comma, affirmative state of. Mind, comma, carnal. The fixed state of mind, the mind of the flesh, subconscious mind. Mind, comma, 3 phases of. I'm going to read you everything he ever wrote on mind right now. No, I'm not. I just want to go with this last one, and then we're going to come back to the story and see what it might offer us today. 3 phases of mind. Conscious mind, subconscious mind, which is synonymous with unconscious mind. Conscious mind, subconscious mind, and superconscious mind, called the Lord. The superconscious mind transcends both the conscious and subconscious phases of mind. This is the part I want you to get. The harmonious working together of these 3 seemingly separate minds is necessary to the bringing forth of the latent possibilities of humankind. It's not bad that you have an unconscious mind. You just got to know you have one. And it is through the conscious mind that we have the portal to work with it, to bring that which is in shadow in front of us. And then it is through the portal of the conscious mind that we direct to the one mind, the infinite. There's really only one mind, but it helps us to hold it in this way so that we can begin to tell the story of our lives, to tell the story of our healing and the story of our creative possibility. Back to Jesus. So this centurion, interesting character. When you're doing a metaphysical interpretation of Bible stories or parables, we don't care if it factually happened, although this story does appear in various forms. There are a lot of discrepancies. If you didn't know that the Bible contradicts itself, now you know that too. But it's okay, because we're not looking to the Bible as a fact-filled history book. We're looking for a deeper meaning. We're looking for spiritual principles that we can then pull into our lives and understand ourselves better and move more coherently with divine law. But every person in the story, what they do, has a metaphysical meaning. A centurion, now the Romans were not popular with the Jewish folk of the day because they were the colonial power, they were oppressive, they were overtaxing the people. They were not happy with Romans. But this high-ranking Roman soldier was very good to the people there, according to this story. But the fact that he is a soldier is really important. To metaphysically interpret this story, I'm going to work with 3 characters. Jesus represents superconscious mind, God mind, Christ mind, source of all that only knows its own perfection, wholeness, power, and beauty. That's all it knows, is its own perfection. It is the sum of all things created and still in potentiality. That is what Jesus represents, source. The centurion represents conscious mind. And then it is the sick servant that represents our unconscious mind. Isn't that fitting? Or is that just my unconscious that's a little sick sometimes? Let's start with him or her. I was watching some Bruce Lipton videos. If you don't know Bruce Lipton, he is epigeneticist. I'm glad I only had like 4 hours of sleep last night. I could still pull that word out. That's good. Can I get an amen? What Bruce Lipton teaches is that we are not at the mercy of our gene pool. He says that that's not the way genetics work. Is that genes express, they turn off and on, and the factor that controls that is the mind. Did you know that? They've actually done studies of families who have a history of cancer. Did you know that the adopted children in those families end up getting the same kind of cancer? Yeah. Why do you think that is? The unconscious mind. A pattern of disconnection, of separation, of lack and limitation, a pattern. And I'm not saying if you get cancer, it's your fault. Please don't hear that. That is not what I'm saying. And that's not what we teach in Unity. That we live in a universe that has, remember what I talked about last week, if you didn't watch it, the 5 Buddhist remembrances, all of us will become ill. And it's not because we've done something wrong, it's because we're human. But we can begin to work with our bodies and our genetics, according to Bruce Lipton. He says that the first 7 years of life, children are in theta state, which means they are like a hypnotic state. They don't rationalize anything. The rational mind hasn't woken up yet. The prefrontal cortex has not yet been wired. And so children just take in all of the false beliefs of their family. They take in all the family trauma that has been going on for generations and generations. Monique, I just can't tell you how inspired I was by your presentation today. Can we give her some more love? And the fact, thank you. The fact that you honored that grandmother, your ancestor, whose name you do not know, so moving. And it's not just African Americans who have inherited generational family trauma. All of us have it. And your parents did the best that they could. Have you ever noticed, parents, how you swore you were not going to do what your parents did, and in a moment you hear your mother or father's voice come out of your mouth? Who would be brave enough to raise their hand and say they've experienced that? Do you know why that is? It's because you were a child. You learned it unconsciously. Nobody gave you a book and said, read this and you'll understand all of our family trauma. You just got it. We all did. And it's not just the family, it's the religions we grew up in. Anybody else got some church hurt? Let me go ahead, let's just see who we are. I know I'm raising my hand very high around that. There's cultural trauma around that, particularly for women and minorities in this country. I mean, my goodness, there is so much that children just grow up steeped in that stuff. And the unconscious mind just takes it all in. When Jesus, and he never actually interacted, so in the other versions of the story, Jesus does interact directly with the centurion, but in this one he doesn't. They never meet face to face, which I think is an also interesting metaphysical little gem. That while we are incarnate, while we are here, there's the absolute and the relative, and we are in relative reality, so we never fully are able to touch, to understand the absolute truth of who we are. That's just the way it is. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Now, we have mystical moments, and there are people that are mystics that see into that reality more deeply. Most of us are just kind of doing the best we can, and that's okay. The fact that this man was a soldier, and in the story it says, I understand working with authority. Now, authority is a tricky word nowadays. Let's just substitute that with systems. I'm used to working with systems of order. And I understand that I have the power to say to those beneath me, do this, and it's done. And this is an orderly, intelligent way of working in this system. We have some military veterans in this community, and here's one of the things I've really learned about many of them. I've never heard a single one of them say, you know, I was so disciplined in high school, then I went into the Army, and I just became a good for nothing. That never happens. Often the reverse story is true. That what's the word that we got? Discipline. The fact that this is a soldier in this story, the rational mind, to access the power fully, must find discipline. We must be disciplined about the thoughts that we hold on to. We must take, now control is also a bad word nowadays, but I'm going to say it. We must be willing to control how much energy and time we give to the old story. And it is in your power. But it takes time to develop the discipline of good, healthy, productive thinking. And some of us did not get a very good head start on that. Some of us ended up chemically addicted and had to go to some rooms with bad coffee and some steps, I guess, and began to take up a practice of, first of all, recognizing our stinking thinking, and then to begin to change it. The conscious mind has the power to choose a different reality. The subconscious mind has a power of habit, and it's a power too. You come to church, you're inspired. Michael Gott told me I can demonstrate the glory of my being. I'm just going to think thoughts of prosperity. Here I am, it's done. But then that old unconscious mind that has been thinking lack and limitation for 45 years begins to erode that intention. Does anybody else have that experience? And let me say this, you're not going to heal every false belief in your unconscious mind while you're in this body. I'm just going to say that. We must make a lot of room for our humanity. We must bring a lot of self-compassion to this work. But you can choose which parts you are going to work on and see it change. Sometimes life is just too much. I had someone tell me once that I'm trying to keep a balanced life and trying to work on all the things I do. It's like trying to be in a swimming pool with 11 volleyballs and you're trying to hold them all under the surface. Can you imagine? Get a picture of that? So how do we do life? You just pay attention to the one that's popped up. And that's what we do. And so the servant is sick. That's the unconscious mind. The conscious mind, represented by the centurion in this story, has need of this servant, as we all do. I'm going to talk about habit here in a minute, because we can develop good habits that also help us. But what does the centurion do? That ordered, disciplined, evolved, mature, rational mind goes to source. Goes to source. Goes to the undifferentiated, pure good that is God and says, that's what I am. And I don't need to see it. It doesn't have to come into my house, but I know it's the truth, and this will heal me. I serve it, my unconscious mind. And when we begin to get a hold of these practices, meditation, prayer, study, I also throw talk therapy in there for me. That was really important. A recovery path was really important for me. But just to do the work of trying to see what is in our unconscious mind, because we can't see it, but we sure see what it does. And the same is actually true. The story of Moses in the cleft of the rock. God says, God, I want to see your face. And Moses says, God says, you can't handle my face. And God said, well, I'll put you in this cleft of the rock. I'll pass by and you can look at my hind parts. That's what it says. But what it means is we can't see the superconscious either, but we can see where it's been. We can see where the power of God has been. We look back on our lives. I don't know how I got through that. It's the power of God within you that got you through that. And that continues to happen. So in these two little, we're the middle stuff of the Oreo. You know, we've got the unconscious mind over here. We've got the superconscious mind over here. But we are conscious. We have this capacity, this facility to interact with reality in a way that is intentional. And it has power for you today. But you've got to be willing to do it. So now let me talk for a minute about habit. Has anybody read Atomic Habits by James Clear? Yeah, it's a great book, bestseller. We might do some classes or work on that. Basically, small changes that you can actually do consistently over a period of at least 2 years will yield incredible results in your life. Habits work both directions. We have good ones, we have bad ones. If you want to change a bad habit or create a good habit, you got to have the discipline of that Roman centurion. You have to be willing to hold discipline in your thoughts, in your practice. But here are 3 quick tips from James about how to do this work. I promise we'll do more on this later. First is environment design. Take Instagram off your phone if that's the habit you're trying to break. Put a bowl of apples on the table if you want to eat more fruit and vegetable. Change in the environment to support a habit change. Scale your habits down. If there's something you're wanting to build into your life, here's the 2-minute test. Can you imagine doing this 98% of the time, no matter what the circumstances in your life are? And if you can't, that's too big. Pick something smaller. The third, master the entry points. He talks about Twyla Tharp, the famous choreographer in New York, and she's in her 60s now, maybe getting close to 70. And she still has a 2-hour training every single day. It's such a habit in her. She says, the only thing I have to do now is hail the cab. That's called the entry point. Find your entry points and master them. That all you have to do is this thing. If I do this thing, then I'm going to do the thing I really want to develop in my life. Change requires not that we fulfill a goal. Change requires that we become the person who has that goal and fulfills it. We become that. You can set a goal to run the marathon, but what you really want to do is become a runner. You can talk about fulfilling the goal of writing a book, but what you really want to do is practice and become the writer. I have a real fun thing to tell you about optimists and pessimists, but I'm not going to today. We don't have time. Basically, just be an optimist, okay? I think we're ready, Gary. I watched a video on Instagram. Yes, it's not a habit I'm trying to break right now. And there was a video, and I didn't have the sound on. It was a video of the Hemsworth brothers. You know who they are, those ridiculously handsome Australian actors. They're ridiculous. Who is that handsome? Come on. But Liam and Chris, they're doing music. And it's like, really? They do music too? But then I turned on the volume, and they were terrible. Just lifted my spirit. And they were actually making a joke. It was funny. But here's the thing. They could become good musicians, but they'd have to put in the same effort and time as they did into their acting. You can't choose everything in this life, but there is something in you that is asking for your attention, that is asking for your loving discipline, that is asking for you to find the power of the mind of God in you and hold to it. And I don't know what that is for you. I kind of have a sense where mine is right now. But I encourage you to begin to take up practices. This Prosperity Plus class, I know we advertise it a lot, but I'm telling you, that's a 7-week experiment for you to get your mind on a higher level. And it's not just about money. It's about creating your dreams in your health, and about in your relationships and in your creative expression. If you had planned on not being a part of that class and you're thinking, maybe that's it, it's a place to start. You're not going to be perfect, but you are going to be better if you do this work. And here's the great news, and I'm really talking a long time today. You will become freer and more fulfilled in your personal life. And that's just the beginning, because that makes you more available to be the blessing to the world that you really are. Howard Thurman said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. This is a community where we get to practice this. We get to play with it. We get to work with these ideas together. And I see it. I see it right now in front of me. People coming alive to the gift of God that they are. Let's pray. Taking this moment to recognize and remember that there is only one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is perfect. That mind is my mind now. And this word I speak over all of us, over anyone who is within the sound of my voice, is that the perfection of God that resides within us begins to reveal itself in new ways. And we begin to take up the power of the conscious mind to choose this, not that. To choose not that, to choose this. And to bring our loving discipline to our lives so that we may begin to, over time, reveal the miraculous transformation that this teaching offers us. We're saying yes to being more of the good that God has created us and gifted us to be, So we bless it all. We give thanks for it all. Even the difficulty becomes an opportunity for us to heal and to learn and to evolve. Thank you, God. We are so grateful, and so it is. Amen. I am so excited. Can you tell? I love this work. This is a great community to do this work, and I hope that if we're not your church and you're still looking for another community, go find it. We just want you to be in some community that's going to support you. But if this is your community, welcome. If no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.